Welcome in, y'all, to my Week 7 NFL picks. We had a good week last week, 10-4, moving us up to 55-38. We're in the top 0.5% of people so far this year, hitting at 59%, which at first doesn't sound that great. I decided to dig into it, ask ChatGPT about this, and that is actually a phenomenal number so far. It's saying it is incredibly difficult to sustain. So am I lucky, or am I just really good at this? There's only one way to find out, and that's to keep picking games. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's jump into Thursday night football. We have the Steelers at Cincinnati. Pittsburgh is favored by a full 5.5 in this one. They're sitting at 4-1 on the year. The Bengals have lost 4 straight since losing Joe Burrow, but Joe Flacco is looking to change that at home on a short week. This is definitely an interesting one. I mean, the Steelers are 4-1. But I don't know if they're quite as good as that record shows. They haven't had a crazy impressive win to me yet. I know they went into New England and won, but the Pats turned the ball over 5 times in that one, so Pittsburgh maybe got a little lucky. Cincinnati definitely looked better with Flacco. He limited the turnovers. I mean, Browning was turning the ball over left and right. That was a bit more what I expected Cincy to look like without Joe Burrow, where they're not that great, but they could still hang around. And this is one that on the road, on a short week, I think 5.5 is just too much. I like Cincinnati to cover here, but I'm going to take Pittsburgh to win 23-20. But let me tell you, I was very, very close to taking the Bengals to win this one. You look back at the last 2 Thursday nights, 2 huge upsets. I think it really could happen again. I think Joe Flacco, the Bengals, they come home 2-4. They're probably kind of out of the playoff race, but you get a win here, and you never know. You could tread some water until December somehow. But yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty tight game. I'd be a little surprised if Pittsburgh ran away with it, but we'll see. So Cincinnati to cover there. Then we move on to the early Sunday game. It's the Jaguars and the Rams, a pretty good one overseas, a pair of 4-2 teams. Jaguars coming off that tough loss home against Seattle. The Rams getting a win over the Lamar Jackson-less Baltimore Ravens. Rams are favored by 2.5 in this one. And this is one of those, I think Jacksonville, they're a lot better than people thought they would be this year. But at the same time, I think 4-2 I guess is about right. But I think they were getting a little too hyped up after that Kansas City win. I think they came back down to earth a little bit against Seattle. Jacksonville's just had a tough time in the majority of their games getting their offense going this season. Then you look at the Rams, a team that's 4-2, and really just a few weird blunders away from 6-0. 2.5 points here. I think I'll take that easily. I don't know about easily. There is no easy game as we found in the NFL. It has been pure chaos through 6 weeks. But I'm going to take the Rams to win and cover overseas. I like what this Rams team is doing. And like I said, you take away a blocked field goal and a fumble at the 1-yard line, which you can't take those away. They happen, and that's a lot of games this year, but they're 6-0 without those. I think they're just a better team on paper, and they're better coached than Jacksonville. So we'll see how that one goes, but I do expect the Rams to get the win overseas there. But then let's look at the Sunday games, the 1 o'clock Eastern slot. You have the Raiders visiting the Chiefs. The Raiders, they got that first win of the season in Foxborough and really have just been on a decline since then. They got a win this past week, but a sloppy win at home against a really bad Titans team doesn't really impress me. The Chiefs started out slow, had some close losses to good teams, and have really turned it on. They did lose to Jacksonville the week before this most recent one, but they've looked like a much, much better team over the last few weeks. And that win over Detroit was kind of a statement that they're back. It's kind of the Chiefs and Bills back towards the top of the AFC, and there's some other teams trying to claim a stake there. It's you got the Colts, Chargers in there, and a couple others. But I think the Chiefs are kind of back to doing what they're going to do, especially offensively. This is one of the best offensive years I've seen from Mahomes in a while, and he gets Rashee Rice back this week. I think this is one of those they can run the score up. That's not something the Chiefs have done a lot of in recent years, but this Chiefs team seems to be operating a bit different to the last couple years, and I think they get a big home win. They're favored by 12.5. That's a lot of points. But I think it's very, very possible. You got to be careful of, a late Raiders touchdown kind of negating that. But I feel good with the Chiefs in this one. And then we'll move on to the Dolphins visiting the Browns. 2 1-5 teams. This one is so difficult, right, to predict. And I really could go either way. The Dolphins, both teams, I'll say both teams actually have impressed me in different ways. The Dolphins are 1-5, right? But outside of their big week 1 blowout, they've been in every single game, and they've been really, really close. They just keep losing at the last minute. The Browns, the defense has been great. We've seen how good the defense have been. The offense just can't do anything. So what's going to kind of win out in this one? I have it being a relatively low-scoring one here, and I'm going to take the Browns to win, but I'm going to take the Dolphins to cover because 2.5, that's a weird one where they don't cover but they win. But this is just, I don't know with these two teams. I think the Browns at home are good enough defensively to hold the Dolphins back and get this. I just don't know how much faith I have in them. So I'll take the Browns in a narrow victory there at home. But then we turn our attention to another 1-5 team. That's the Tennessee Titans. They're hosting the 4-2 New England Patriots. Patriots have had a good couple weeks here. That win over Buffalo was really strong, and they're looking to compete for the AFC East. They currently hold the lead with the tiebreaker, and this is one of those you can't trip up. New England is a young team with a young quarterback, and sometimes they're more easily tripped up than others, but this is one you cannot lose. Tennessee is brutal. They've been one of the worst teams all year, but you can't take any team lightly in the NFL. That being said, I think the Patriots should win, and I think they should cover in this one. But Tennessee's defense is strong. They just fired the head coach. Some teams, they kind of have a letdown after that. Some get fired up, so be careful. If the Titans find a way to really dig deep and fight hard in this one, they could keep it close. Titans have a respectable defense. But there's also that chance, the coach gets fired and they just get let down even more, and it's a blowout. So tough to predict after a head coaching firing, but I will take New England in this one. They're just a better team, and I think New England is very well coached with Vrabel, and it's kind of his revenge game here. I haven't made note of that yet, but that's something to consider, and I think he doesn't like the way he and Tennessee parted ways, so maybe he pours it on a little bit if he has the ability to. We'll see how that goes. But then you have yet another 1-5 team, the New Orleans Saints, on the road in Chicago. What a win for the Bears on Monday night. That was a big one for them. Kind of a statement win in the way of, we need to be respected this year. And I know they started the season rough. They started 0-2, and they were written off, but 3 straight wins, and all of a sudden they're right in that playoff race, and they get a nice, easy home game here. You can't trip up. You can't trip up in this one. Again, a young team, young quarterback. But they're at home, so I feel a bit better about it. They're favored by 5.5. The Saints, I've talked about it in a few videos. They're one of the least talented teams in the league, but they've played very, very clean football. But they're still losing games in spite of that. So I don't have that much faith in the Saints. So I'll take the Bears here to win and to cover. I think they win by a touchdown. The Bears continue to get those wins. They move to 4-2. But then turning our attention to an 0-6 team hosting a 3-3 team. It's the Jets versus the Panthers. Now, this is a fun one here. So I've been saying it for a few weeks. I've been saying Carolina, going back at last year, Bryce Young look way better at home. And I've been just kind of tossing that around. How true is it? You look at their 3 road games this year, they've been horrible. Very, very, very bad. Only one that wasn't horrible was at Arizona, but that one looks closer than it was. They got a lucky late plays, but Carolina's been very bad on the road and very, very good at home. Last week, I picked Dallas on the road in Carolina. I shouldn't have done that. I should have trusted Carolina at home. This one, I'm going to roll with the theory here. Give me the Jets at home to beat the Panthers. And this is one, all jokes aside with the home and road thing, which I'm not joking, it is a thing with some teams. But you look at the analytics and the numbers, I've looked at several different pages. despite the Panthers doing well, despite them being 3-3, they are still in like the bottom 6 or 7 teams in just about anything you look at. So the analytics don't love them this year, despite being 3-3. They're going on the road where they haven't played well. A Jets team that hasn't played well either, but they did give the Broncos a run for their money last week. I think a lot of people are going to be on the Panthers in this one, especially with them only favored by a 1.5, 2 points. So I really like the Jets in this one, a good spot for their first win of the season. But then I'm going to move on to a very interesting 1 o'clock game. You have the Eagles visiting the Vikings. This is one I'm having a little trouble with because on paper, well, you know what, backtracking a little bit. I was going to say on paper the Eagles should win this game, and I think that is still true. They're the better team, but at the same time, Minnesota should be better than 3-2, considering what their losses have been on paper with how good that roster is outside of quarterback. So my big concern with this one is Philadelphia and 2 straight losses. They seem like they might be having a little locker room trouble. A.J. Brown's complaining about not getting the ball, which it kills me when guys complain when they're winning games, which now they're losing games, so I guess whatever. But we remember 2 years ago when the Eagles started the season, off the top of my head, I don't know, but it was a very, very good record. They started losing a couple games, locker room problems happened, and they spiraled. Is that happening early here? I'm very concerned it is. So until I see them get back on track, I'm going to take a pretty solid Minnesota team at home here in an upset victory. But that's what I'm going to keep my eye on. I'm curious how Philadelphia responds from 2 straight losses. They had some extra time to prepare. So we'll see what happens. So did Minnesota coming off the bye. But that should be a very good game. And speaking of very good games, I am very excited about this one. I've been looking forward to this one. You get the Colts visiting the Chargers. Another test for the Colts. The Colts are just a team I'm very interested in this season. The way they've been able to, I don't know about defy the odds, but they have done better than anyone expected them to. They're 5-1. They have a chance to go to 6-1. They're top of the AFC. And you got the Chargers team that has had hype for how many years in a row now, and it really feels like this could be the year. Now they've suffered a lot of injuries recently, so that is something to keep in mind. But I just really like the clashing between these two teams, and I think it's a great opportunity to learn more about each team and really which one is a contender, which is a pretender, and I think this is a good game to find out. So, Colts, Chargers favored by 1.5 in this one. They're coming off that nice late win against the Dolphins. They needed that one. That was a game they couldn't go lose and drop to 3-3. So good one there. Indy had a scare against Arizona, and Brissett, the backup quarterback for Arizona, they had a scare at home, but they held on, got the job done, 31-27 there. So, both teams coming off wins, but neither were overly impressive. This is a big game for both teams. But at the end of the day, I think the Chargers have just been a little shakier this season, especially over the last few weeks. I know they've had injuries, and that plays a big part. But I really have liked what the Colts have done this year. I feel good about them, and I'm going to keep riding the Colts. Give me the Colts to go on the road and get the win here in LA. Their only loss this season was in SoFi Stadium against the Rams. I think they return to SoFi Stadium and get it done against the Chargers. But that's going to be a very, very close game, and that game is going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. But then our next 4-5 game is the Giants and the Broncos. This is one, in the process of going over what my picks were going to be, I actually changed my mind on. So Broncos are favored by 6.5. And, at first I had the Giants covering that. But the more I think about it, the more I think the Broncos barely beat the winless Jets. The Giants got a huge road win home win against the Eagles when they were big underdogs. So a lot of hype coming in on the Giants, but they're still 6.5-point underdogs. I would expect a lot of people to be on the Giants here, and that just scares me because it's such a big number. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Broncos here because, I needed to step back from what was a great win by the Giants. But remember that just the week before that, they went on the road and lost by more than a score to a very bad Saints team. So the future is very, very bright for these Giants. I love Dart so far. They're doing great things. but this team still has a little bit to go. And the Broncos, that defense is going to give the Giants some trouble. I think the Broncos hold on. They win this one. 23-14 is what I have it as, and they win and cover there in the Mile High City. But then moving on to our 4:25 Eastern games, we have Packers-Cardinals. I'm making this pick on the assumption Kyler Murray is in, by the way. I'm not sure if he's going to be. I believe I saw questionable is the most recent thing I've seen, but we will see there. But Packers coming off a nice win against the Bengals. Nothing too impressive. They were supposed to win. Cardinals, Murray was out, and they almost went and beat the Colts. So, props to them there. I think Murray needs to step up his game after seeing that. But this is one that the Packers are favored by a full 6.5. And that seems to me like a lot. I think the Cardinals, they're 2-4, but I think they're a tick better than that. And they really should be 3-3. That Tennessee game was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. They invented a way to lose that one. I think 6.5 is just a lot. So while the Packers are a really good team, they're a much better team than the Cardinals. I think coming on the road here, I think the Cardinals are able to keep it relatively close, keep it within a score, and the Packers do win this one, but I like the Cardinals to cover 6.5. But yeah, that's kind of a weird one there, because the Cardinals are prone to letdowns, but they can get a sneaky one on some teams now and again, and maybe this is one of those. But then moving on to the main 4:25 Eastern game on Fox with, Brady, Burkhardt. You got the Cowboys and the Commanders. Washington is favored by 2 in this one. Both teams coming off tough last-second losses. Two teams that really need this win. Washington you fall to 3-4 considering the season they had last year. They only had 5 losses. That's tough. And they want to compete for the division. These are games they got to win. The Cowboys 2-3-1. They fall to 2-4-1. They're in big trouble. The playoffs start looking further and further away with a loss here. So this is a big one for both teams. But I think this one's gonna be a lot of fun. You look at the Cowboys have had 2 home games so far this season. What happened in those 2 home games, you ask? A 40-37 overtime thriller against the Giants, and then a 40-40 tie against the Packers. That one ended, unfortunately in a tie, but 40 points scored by 3 of the 4 teams in their 2 games just seems like electric offense at home with absolutely no defense being played. So that's always one to look forward to. I think it's going to be a fun game. I went back and forth on this one. And I'm going with the Cowboys at home. Do I feel great about it? No, I do not. But I don't think I'd feel great about picking either of these teams right now. So we'll see on this one. This could easily be one of those that the Commanders could blow them out. I think if anyone's blowing anyone out, it'd be Washington that does it. But I think it's going to be a close, high-scoring game. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think it comes down to the last possession. I really do. And I'm just going to go with the Cowboys here, taking the home team in that one. So then we move on to Sunday Night Football. You get the Falcons visiting the Niners. This is one I had trouble with as well. I went back and forth. I think I actually switched it several times. Niners are favored. It's down to 2.5 now after the Falcons' very impressive win on Monday night against the Bills. And, that's definitely going to swing, people's opinion in their favor. Probably more people in on them. And the Niners coming off that tough loss to the Bucs. And, Fred Warner's now out for the year, it sounds like. I am hearing they will get Kittle back for this game, I believe. As far as some other pieces, it's still TBD. I originally had the Niners in this one right before making this. And I just feel like they can find ways to win with Shanahan, his coaching. He's such a good coach, such a good play caller. And if they can limit the turnovers that Mac Jones had last week, not that he played horribly, but gotta limit those turnovers. I think they absolutely could win. But Atlanta, really, if you take away, you can't just take it away, but if you were to take away that 30-0 loss against the Panthers, which I still don't know what happened there, they have been very impressive this year. Their only other loss is at home on a last-second play missed field goal by Young Hoku to the 5-1 Bucs. So Atlanta's been pretty impressive this year. So I'm going to take them to win this one on the road against my better judgment. Because gut is saying Niners, but the mind in this one is saying Falcons. So I'm going with the Falcons in this one. Don't feel great about it, though. So then Monday Night Football, we're talking Lions, we're talking Bucs. This is a fun game we have here. The Bucs have been electric all year. I love watching the Bucs. They're not my team, but I root for them. I love Baker. The Lions are a lot of fun in their home games. And the Bucs are beat up, man. They're really beat up. They're 5-1, but they're beat up. And 5.5 or 5 seems like a pretty big number, to be honest. And at first I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to have Tampa Bay covering in that one. But then I thought about it a bit more. Tampa Bay's really beat up. And then I was like, man, the Lions really respond well after losses, don't they? And I went back and checked. After their last 11 losses with Dan Campbell, they are 11-0. The Lions are. Very good at responding after losses with him as a coach. Once they, finally didn't suck. Once they had a decent team, of course. So I think this is one, the Lions at home, they get this one, and I think they cover. I think it's a close game. I think it's a really close game, but sometimes close games, you have a last-second touchdown, and that's the difference. They win by 7, which would cover a lot of spreads, but it's a game that came down to the wire. So I think one way or another, the Lions are going to find a way to cover in this one, but I do think it's going to be a really, really close game. I think the Bucs could win it. I mean, they're showing so much fight, so much fire. They could go in there. They could win this one. But I'm just going to lean Lions in this one, and just a weird feeling that they're going to cover that. But then the last Monday Night Football game doesn't start till 10 p.m. Eastern time, a late kickoff out in Seattle. And this is one that, the Texans, they started 0-3. They got 2 straight wins, but neither of those wins have been overly impressive. They beat the Titans, a really bad team, and then they beat the Ravens without Lamar Jackson, which apparently is a really bad team. So not sure what to make about the Texans. Have they figured it out? Because those were both blowout wins, or was it just a middle-of-the-road team destroying really bad teams? We'll see there. Seattle, they continue to impress, man. I mean, they could have had that Bucs game. They fought hard. They did lose it. But their 2 losses this year have been very close. Their wins have been very good. This is a very, very, very good defense and a very competent offense. An offense that can move the ball and an offense that can put up just, enough points. And I really like this Seattle team. Now, 3.5, I don't love that. That seems like a bit much to me. This feels like kind of maybe a field goal game or just inside of it. So I'm going to take Houston to keep it within the 3.5, but I'm going to take Seattle to win this one. I think they come home, primetime, Monday night, and get the win. I think Houston needs this win more. Houston's 2-3. They're trying to battle back into the AFC South battle or just the wild card battle. So they're coming off the bye, so they could be a little sneaky there, so look out for that. Wouldn't be surprised if the Texans won it. Texans are a good team. I think they're a bit underrated at the moment, just the way their season's gone. So keep an eye on them, but I do like Seattle to win and not cover at home on Monday night. So those are my picks for the week. Of course, let me know where you disagree, and I'd love to hear your picks. I always like hearing other people's, and I think it's interesting how much stuff can differ and the insight that people have. So looking forward to hearing what y'all have and hoping for another great week of football.